we actually got to do a lot, so it was really good. We did the concept of like, the concept of life versus existence. Then we spoke about Shabbos. We spoke about mezuzah. Now we're going to end off with kosher. Okay, the laws of kosher, I'm going to get to hear from you guys a lot because I feel like people heard it and know a little bit about it. But I had an experience today. I was telling some of you at work where I told some people that like certain things that they did not think was kosher is kosher, like Baskin Robbins, and they were like, "What? Like you do what I do?" They were like so excited that like they knew that things were kosher. So yes, there is a little bit more about kosher. But so we did the body as a collective unit, right? We did the life versus existence, that you're not just a body, but you're also a soul. I know I overheard a little bit. Oh, it's okay. I know I overheard a little bit of Elimel's class where he was talking about how like your body, you know, your soul goes up, your body stays here, but your soul continues to live. So we know this concept that we're two parts and we're not just a body, but we're also a soul. So this actually has to do with a lot what we're going to talk about tonight's class. And eating is a very, very big concept in Judaism. I don't know if you noticed, we have 6 fast days, but we have 80 feasting days. So there's a lot of eating going on, so it involves a lot of food. And the tricky thing with kosher, though, is that I think we spoke about this when we spoke about mezuzah. There are 3 categories of mitzvos. Did we speak about this? So there are mitzvos that we do that just make sense, like don't kill, don't steal, don't lie, don't cheat, don't sleep with your like neighbor's wife, like all those things that make sense as a moral society. Then the second one are edim, which are laws that we a lot of times we do to testify that there's a God in this world, but also we can like slightly understand it. Like if you explain to me Shabbos, I'm like, oh, I get that. Like, okay, fine. Like I will, you know, take 1 day a week to disconnect. Fine, I get that, right? But not only disconnect, but create a vessel, right, and fill it up. Go shopping, not literally shopping. And then the last category are mitzvahs that we don't understand at all. We try to give reasons, but deep down we don't understand, and those are called chukim. And for example, the laws of the mikvah, family purity, fall under that, you know, category. And I can speak about that with some of you if you'd like, and I did speak to some of you about it. But there are ways to explain, like why women will go to the mikvah, but we can't necessarily give you the reason for it. Kosher falls under that category. Kosher is not vegetarian or healthy laws of eating, not at all. And anybody who thinks that it is, nothing to do with it. Kosher doesn't make you healthy. I know plenty of people who eat kosher and are not healthy, and plenty of people who don't eat kosher and are very healthy. So kosher does not have to do with healthy. The same way people think that women go to the mikvah because they're dirty. Absolutely not. They've never been so clean in their life when they go to the mikvah. So that is not true. So from what we know about kosher, what do we know about kosher? Let me hear from you guys what you guys know about kosher, and let's say in terms of animals. What makes an animal kosher? Right, split hooves, okay, so that means they're split in their feet. Okay, let's talk about animals, okay, and what else? Huh? Double stomach, chew their cud. So basically, they eat their food. It's like somebody who has like acid reflux, okay, right? Okay, it's like they chew their food, and then at some point, it comes back up, and then it goes back down. They swallow it. It's like regurgitating their food, okay, chew their cud, okay. You're like, if you weren't a vegetarian before you came to class, now you are. No, I'm just kidding. So the animals that have split hooves and chew their cud. So name me some animals. Let's figure out if they have split hooves and chew their cud. A chicken. No. Let's talk. Let's save birds. We'll go to birds right after. Fowl, poultry, all that stuff. We'll save that. What about animals? A cow. A cow has split hooves, and a cow are always chewing, right? They're sitting there by the grass, and they're just like, What other animal does that? A lamb. Good. So cows are kosher. Lambs are kosher. Camel. Camel is a very good question, because camels do chew their cud. Camels all day are chewing, but do they have split hooves? They actually do. Why are camels not kosher? Because their split hooves are not completely hooved. It's webbed, actually. And this was a really nice thing on God's part. This I heard from Rabbi Lawrence. He explained to me that they have webbed split hoof. Because can you imagine walking in the sand all day and having like sand in between your toes? So God made it really comfortable for them. And he has a webbed split hoof so that the sand does not go in between his toes. So camels are not kosher. Another animal. A giraffe. Okay, giraffe is also a very good question, because This is an old story that people tell me all the time. They're like, giraffes chew their cud and have split hooves, but they have such a long neck that we don't know where to slaughter them. That's wrong, though. I always thought that was true till like a year ago. But actually, that has to do with the laws of slaughtering, and we'll explain it. But giraffes could be kosher, but we don't know how to slaughter them properly. So I'll explain what the laws of slaughtering when we get to that. So giraffes are kosher. Any other animal that we know are to be kosher? A horse, good. Does a horse chew its cud? They sure do chew their cud. They are always chewing. They don't have split hooves, right? Think of a horseshoe. They don't have split hooves, right? A goat is kosher, yes. A sheep is kosher, good. I think we got all the main animals, right? Deer, venison is kosher. Deer is kosher. Okay, so for the most part, is pig kosher? Do they have split hooves? Pigs, by the way, are the only animal that has split hooves but does not chew its cud. Okay? So, for example, if you do look at a pig's, their feet are split, but they do not chew their cud. So they have the external looking of a kosher animal, but not the internal. Okay? Which, by the way, does have something to do with the concept of a pig and what makes it kosher, what makes it not. Okay, so we got the main animals. We got the cow, we got the deer, the goat, the venison, and the sheep. Okay, the deer. Sorry, I'm saying venison. Okay, now let's talk fish. Fish. What makes a fish kosher? Oh, no, Megan, you have this pain look on your face. You picture eating all those things? Well, you should just know with my kids, they have like, they're so into like, where does this come from? Where does this come from? So they're like, even like, we're eating like potatoes. And they're like, what animal does the potato come from? I'm like, the potato comes from the ground. They're like, no, but what animal? Because they're so like, and then like I'm making like a big piece of salmon. And they're like, where's the eyes? I'm like, no, this is just, I'm like, this is the inside of the fish. They are like so grossed out. And then on Rosh Hashanah, I serve tongue. And like, Yael is like, she actually really likes it, but she was like the whole meal. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, Yael, you're killing it for everybody here at this table. She's like, but it's different than our tongue. I'm like, yeah, it's different. It's different. I know. It's all scary. So that's what I was saying. If you weren't a vegetarian, you will be one after this. Okay, so now we have fish. What makes a fish kosher? Scales, good. Fins and scales. You guys are so good. Okay, I knew. I should have called you up for the class. And not a bottom feeder. Thank you. Yes, good. Awesome. So we have fins and scales. Here's something interesting, that if a fish has scales, it means it has fins. But if it has fins, it doesn't mean it has scale. For example, a shark has fins but no scales. So let's say you go to the store and you see that an animal has, you could see the scales, but you can't necessarily see the fins because maybe they cut it off when they cleaned it. Then you know as long as it has scales, then it's kosher. So what fish is kosher? Salmon, obviously. We wouldn't have lox without it. Tuna. Halibut. Thank you. Cod. Good. Whitefish. Flounder.
Is fish the same as a meat? Like, it would have to say that it's a kosher fish. You don't just assume that.
So what do you mean?
I mean, like meat, you're buying it from a
You can buy fish from Costco.
Oh, really? So it doesn't have to say.
As long as you know the fish has fins and scales, because fish, it doesn't have to be killed in a certain manner. Okay, so like when I was working lakefront, when I was in camp, sleepaway camp, the head lifeguard was like, let's go fishing. So we went fishing, and then she had us all take a bat and hit the fish after so that we can grill it. And I'm traumatized for life. I was like, I don't want to do it. She's like, do it. I'm like, I don't want to do it. And she's like, think of your brother or something like that. It was really bad, but doesn't have. I think that there are probably better ways to kill a fish than that. That just seems like inhumane. Yes. Is all fish parv? That is a good question. Yes, all fish is parv. Okay, we'll talk about that when we get to meat and milk. So we have the fish that are not kosher, like bottom feeders, shark, eel, all these fish that don't have scales or fins. Okay. Yellowtail is kosher. I think so. Swordfish is a very good question. I was waiting for swordfish is questionable. There are certain communities certain rabbis that do say swordfish are okay, because swordfish, the interesting thing about swordfish is that later on in life it develops scales. Not when it's born, but later on it will develop scales. So it is questionable. Yes? Who made up these rules? Good question. Now we'll learn this, that, what? we will get to it, okay? Hold your question, and if I don't answer it, like, outright, ask again, okay? Yes. Okay, so fins and scales, and now let's get to birds, okay? We were talking about chickens. What makes a bird kosher? Not a vulture. Good, good. It can't be a predator bird. So, for example, a vulture, a hawk. Actually, with birds, it's very interesting. In the Torah, there are a list of 20-odd birds that are listed to be known kosher. But the problem is we can't match up all those Hebrew terms of birds to the birds that we have nowadays. For example, some of them could be extinct. The dodo bird, right? Wait, did anybody know there's like a book I used to read? It's called The Dodo Bird. I think it was about a family of dodo birds. I feel like I'm imagining it. I used to read this book.
That's a dodo bird.
Right?
I've heard follow that bird.
Yes, yes. Okay, so I know dodo birds are not made up. Right, right. Okay. So I know I'm not making it up. Okay. So I know I'm not making it up. There's something about dodo birds. So dodo birds, for example, are extinct. But we can't match up all those names of the birds that are listed in the Torah with the birds that are now. So what we have is, in Hebrew, we call them a Masorah, a tradition of which birds we eat. And these birds are chicken, duck, okay, turkey. I think there are like 4 birds. There's like one other bird. Hen is a chicken, right? A pigeon. People say dove is kosher. A pigeon is a dove. Yes. And I love Emily's term. Pigeons are rats that fly. We're just like traumatized from pigeons because like I've killed so many pigeons in my life. It's like so, not on purpose, but like, run over them. Okay, so birds. So we have to have a tradition. We have a tradition of the birds. The birds that are listed in the Torah we can't necessarily identify, but we do know that certain birds are kosher, chicken to be one of them. And the other birds that we do not eat, like you said, were the ostrich, like any bird of prey, like hawk, vultures, ostrich, all these birds those we do not have a tradition to eat. Okay, so now that we know what's kosher, okay, fish, meat, and poultry, okay, and birds, whatever, now that we know where kosher, if, let's say I see a cow in the street, I mean, I don't tend to see one unless I live in India, but if I were to have a cow in the street, don't they worship cows and they can walk? I mean, I've never been there, but I've seen pictures of like cars, like traffic with like cars and like cows. Okay, so now can I eat this cow? It's kosher. Can I eat it? No, why not? It needs to be slaughtered in a certain way. Now, the Hebrew word for the slaughtering that we use is called shchita. Okay, shchita sounds like slaughtering. Is actually this is the least violent way of killing an animal. So if you were to eat an animal, okay, I understand. Is there any vegetarians in the room? No, okay. So now shchita, remember how we were talking about slaughtering of the animals for the sacrifices, right? I already scared you with the temple being like a slaughterhouse. Okay, so in order to, first of all, you have to be trained in order to kill an animal. It's not like something like you go to school to learn how to slaughter animals properly. The knife has to be so sharp, it cannot have any nicks in it. Because there can't ever be for a second that the animal does not feel, like it has to be one quick slice. It can't just be like, you're cutting through, I don't know. Okay, I'm sorry, I'm like killing everybody. But like a carrot. Carrots are really hard to cut. I don't like ever cutting carrots. If they sell pre-cut carrots in the store, like nice carrot sticks, I'll do that. Or just buy baby carrots. But carrots are very annoying to cut. Sweet potato also. By the way, I was thinking that because I like sweet potato, and when I was eating dinner tonight, I was like, wow, who cut these sweet potatoes? So I'm like, they only cut it in 4, so it's okay. But like when I make a side dish of sweet potato, I try to make sweet potato fried. And it takes forever to like do it. Like I'm like, I need a chopper for it. Okay, so we need to have the animal slaughtered in a proper way. And that means that it can only be killed this way. So for example, if an animal is hunted, it is not kosher. So Jewish people, we cannot hunt animals. So how do we get them? No stun guns, nothing. How do we get the animals? Farms, or we trap them, right? A deer. How would we catch a deer without like, I'm thinking like the Hunger Games, right? Like Katniss whips out her bow and like she'll shoot an animal and she'll eat it. We can't do that. We cannot shoot an animal. If the animal dies any other way than being slaughtered by its neck, we cannot eat it. Okay? So that means no stun guns, and it can't die of any illness. Okay? Now here, glatt kosher, right? You've heard the term of glatt kosher. What does glatt kosher mean? Not only after the animal is slaughtered properly, but also after the animal is dead, okay, with the proper shechita, we check the animal to make sure, the insides of the animal, that it would not have died within a year from any other disease or in Hebrew it's called a mum, any other blemish within the animal. That means it can't, so when we say glatt kosher, it's checked extensively. Some people say they check the lungs of the animal to make sure that the animal is healthy. It has to be a completely healthy animal. So when people have these images in their head of like cows, like all crowded in one room and going through a little thing and having like a stun gun, like that does not happen in a kosher slaughterhouse. It cannot happen. The animals have to be healthy. They have to be well fed. They have to be taken care of. They cannot have any other blemish. They can't have any other cut anywhere else than the shechita cut, okay? So glatt kosher, if people say you have a glatt kosher dairy restaurant, no, it can't be. Glatt kosher only has to do with meat, okay, when they check the animal. Now, the problem with the giraffe, like Margot brought up, is that not that we don't know where to slaughter it, but the only way to get the giraffe in that proper position to be slaughtered correctly, it would cause the animal pain, and it would also cause a blemish within the giraffe. I mean, like, just imagine, like, trying to pick up a giraffe and, like, bend him. It's like cow tipping, but, like, just with giraffes. It's like getting him in that right position. It would cause a blemish. It would cause it to be painful. It has to be done in the smoothest, most quickest way possible, least violent. This is the most harmless way of killing the animal, so that's why we can't have it. Then there is some body parts of the animal that we can't eat. That is the blood of the animal, okay? And what we do in order to empty out, Jewish people, we say that the soul still exists within the blood. The blood is the soul of the animal, and that means we would be eating part of the soul, which we can't necessarily understand. But we try to drain it as much blood, and then we also put something else onto the blood to remove more of the blood. And what is that? Salt. So now, when you go to the store and you buy kosher salt, what does that come from? It comes from the term of koshering it. To make something kosher, the verb is to kosher it. So when you want to make the animal more kosher, you pour a lot of salt, and that's why people say kosher meat is saltier, because we want to drain as much blood away from it as possible. So we put the salt that absorbs the blood. So that's one thing. And then there's another part that we don't eat, and that's the hip socket of the animal, called the gid hanasha, the sciatic nerve. Okay, the sciatic nerve has to do with a story way back that happened with Jacob and the angel of Esau. Anybody know the story? When he was fighting with the angel of Esau, which was like, people say was like the evil inclination who he was fighting with. So when we do next semester, when we do the strong Jewish women, we'll do the story of the matriarchs, and we'll talk about that story. Basically, Jacob was hurt in the sciatic nerve, and from now on, we have a tradition not to eat that nerve, that hip pocket, so that is often removed from the animal so that we don't eat it. Now, what if, so I made my meat kosher, I slaughtered it properly, I koshered it, I took out the sciatic nerve, I took out the blood, and now I want to sit down with a glass of cold milk. Is that okay? No, that's not okay. Why? Where do we learn that from? The Torah, yes. Okay, Jamie wants to know where all this stuff coming from? Where does it say this? So in the Torah it says you are not allowed to cook a goat in its mother's milk. And that is where we learn all the laws of meat and milk, okay, of not mixing. And even my Jamaican babysitter knows you're not allowed to mix milk and meat together. She used to work at a hotel in the Turks and Caicos where a lot of people came for Passover, and they would make the whole place kosher for Passover. And she knew everything blue is dairy and everything red is meat. But then I messed up and I bought red KitchenAid pots for dairy. And she's like, she was yelling at me. She's like, why are you confusing me? Why'd you buy red pots? Why? And then she's like, blue is dairy. And I'm like, you're right. It's my fault. But it was like a really nice set. I feel really bad. So I should just like make it meat and just like buy new dairy pots. Okay, so you cannot cook them together. And actually, meat and milk is so strong, you cannot derive any benefit from having meat and milk cooked together. So for example, if I chose to own a non-kosher restaurant, it's okay. I can derive benefit from cooking pig, and I don't know how you cook it, but whatever you do, you stick an apple in it. I would be able to cook it, right? I think that's what it is. I would be able to cook it, and then I would be able to sell it to non-Jewish people. It's okay. I can make some money off of it. But I cannot make any benefit or derive any good from having meat and milk cooked together. It is even more stringent than eating a non-kosher animal to eat milk and meat together. Now, you have the question of, what do you mean? Like, I mean, I feel like whenever I talk about meat and milk, everyone's like, oh, yeah, my grandmother, she had 2 separate dishes, 2 sinks, whatever. You could survive with 1 sink. I have 1 sink, and I use it for meat and milk, and it's okay, even though every time my mother walks into the kitchen, she goes, your kitchen's trafe. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's okay. Like, just because you have 3 sinks for meat, milk, and pariv, you know, and she gets 3 dishwashers, like, I'm like, it's okay. I will, yeah, seriously, I know. That's like, and then I'm like, and then my room and my closet is teeny because you double the size of the kitchen. That's not fair. It makes things easier. Like, I can wash my dishes. Like, if you want to know, I can wash all my meat dishes. I have a special drain board for meat, and then whenever I want to wash my milk dishes, I stick a dairy drain board on the bottom of the sink, and I wash it. It's fine. You can survive with 1 sink. Believe me, back in the days when they kept kosher, they did not have 3 sinks. They did it. Dishwasher is a very good question. I'm still having like issues with my dishwasher because we just moved. But so basically, this is what my rabbi said. Some people say you just run it 3 empty cycles and it's okay. 3 times with empty, so that it like the hot water. What? The hot water and the soap. No, not between using it. Such a waste of water. I know. It's to make it kosher, but it's 3 cycles.
No, the question is like, I have a lot of meat dishes
Oh.
today for lunch, but for dinner I'm having milk.
So some people do say it's okay. Some people are lenient when it comes to dishwashers. What I was told by my rabbi is that it's a stainless steel dishwasher. The drawers are plastic, so I have to order new drawers, and it's okay because stainless steel can't be koshered. Like, for example, my countertops are granite. You can kosher that as long as you pour hot water. We'll talk about that when we talk about utensils being kosher.
Would you want your meat full with your milk full?
I wouldn't, but some people are more lenient and they do.
1 load, take it out.
So people say with glass you can, because there's something about glass that it does not absorb. Right, it's not porous, and that's why technically if you have 1 set of dishes, buy a glass set of dishes and it's okay. Like, we have 1 set of glasses, and I will have that like I'll have a cold cup of milk with it, and I can use the same glass, wash it out, and eat, let's say, a meat meal with that glass. It's okay because glass is not porous, so it doesn't absorb the taste of it. So if you're going to do one thing, that glass is definitely makes it easier. Certain things cannot be koshered, like pottery, ceramic, plastic. Once you use a plastic bowl for something, for like meat or milk, it can't be kosher. But we'll explain that when we talk about the essence and the idea of kosher. Okay? So remind me to get back to that if we don't get back to it. Okay. So milk and meat together is so stringent that we even go out of our way not to eat, not only not to eat it together, but what else do really stringent people do? They wait certain amounts of hours between when they eat meat and milk. So, for example, Emily and Rachel, I'm going to embarrass you, but you bought me a really nice crumb cake for my birthday, cupcake, which was yesterday, yes, but I celebrated a week and a half ago, don't worry. It's a whole month situation. So they bought me a dairy cupcake, and I was like, oh, I just ate meat because I tasted the chicken from upstairs. Now, it's so stringent, this law of not eating a goat in its mother's milk, of not mixing meat and milk together, that people will wait. My family's tradition is to wait at least 5 hours between eating meat and milk. But then I had another piece of chicken at 6:30, so now I'm like, I have to wait till 2 o'clock in the morning to eat it. But the reason is because meat and chicken have a tendency to stay in your mouth. Like, okay, yes, you can say, what if I brush and floss and everything? We'll talk about that. But the idea that it's still in my mouth, that if I were to have a glass of milk together with it, it would be that same idea of having meat and milk together. So from dairy to meat, you don't have to, because cheeses and milk don't have that tendency to stay in your mouth. There are, though, certain cheeses that you have to wait 6 hours. For example, hard-aged cheeses, Parmesan cheese. If I were to have Parmesan cheese, I would have to wait 6 hours. Listen, some families wait, some people have accustomed to wait 3 hours. Some people have accustomed to wait 1 hour. Whatever it is. What? The Dutch have 1 hour. I'm like, oh, why was I not born in Holland? So people say between dairy and meat, that's okay, but not between meat and milk. So you can say, what do you mean? I brush my teeth, I floss and everything. But, so it goes like this. We have a custom to do this. This has brought down this custom to wait. And even though you might be able to brush your teeth and floss and get everything out, if I let one person do it, then I let everybody do it, right? Okay? So somebody gave it, I heard this example that, let's say, like, there's a roadblock, right? And the street is closed off because it's a very bad pothole. I'm like, I could tell a police officer, like, let me just go. Like, it's okay. Like, you'll let me go. I'm not going to fall into the pothole. Like, I'll be fine. And then the police officer is going to say, well, I'm sorry, if I let you go, somebody else might go and they might fall in. So the idea is we can't let everybody just brush your teeth and floss, because I can't guarantee that everybody will brush their teeth and floss between meat and milk. So we have this tradition to wait during that time. Okay, so that's meat and milk, and that's animals. Now, there is another thing that we did not discuss that is not kosher, and that is bugs, okay, insects. It is so stringent not to eat bugs. It actually says it's like an abomination. It's like one of the worst things to eat is bugs, okay? Now, we really don't have that issue, right, with like ants. Like we don't have like right? Like I don't like have this desire to like eat the ant that's like Yael is like burning with like with a magnifying glass, right? She's like, oh, mommy, look. By the way, you're not allowed to do that. You're not allowed to be cruel to animals. And I always try. I can't remember what's that word when it's. Oh, to derive pleasure from it? Okay. Oh, wait. So that's not, I mean, listen, that's not done once the animal is killed, then you use all the parts of the animal. We believe that's okay. You're allowed to use the parts. Okay, this is not like sponsored by PETA, obviously. No. No. I actually, for my 7th anniversary, I wanted a fur coat so badly, and Amel was like trying to get his way out of it. He's like, come on, like it's cruel. I'm like, Amel, all of a sudden it's cruel when you have to buy it. No, so the idea, once an animal has been properly killed, you can use the animal. We do believe that animals were put here into this world for our use. We don't believe, that we want to like save the animal, just like it's not, we don't believe, I think Amel said he's going to be talking about evolution. We don't believe in this idea of like survival of the fittest, that like we were once animals and we're greater than them now. No, we believe that animals were created for our use. So that is whether to eat or their skins. I mean, the Torah scroll is written on the skin of an animal. A mezuzah is made out of the skin of an animal. Leather, shoes. I mean, like if you wear leather shoes, it's the same thing as wearing a fur coat. I'm sorry. Like, do PETA people not wear leather shoes?
No, they don't.
They don't. Oh.
But could you wear a fur coat and not have a kosher animal?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I know he was one to those little like skunks, like what? Not skunks. What's the animal? Minks. Yes. But we can't hunt the animal. But we can. I'm saying if somebody else does it, it's okay. Yeah, we don't. Jewish people don't hunt as a sport. Like we don't kill animals. So, I always think of. I don't know why I think of this. Like in Mary Poppins, when they go into like the animation world, right? There's like, I don't know where this fits into the movie, but there's these 2 little guys like running after foxes. Do you know what I'm talking about? And yeah, you know what I'm talking about? It's like so random. There's like, they're hunting as a sport and they're hunting foxes. And I remember like my older brother was like, we're not allowed to do that. I was like, okay, that's such a random piece of information. But we don't hunt as a sport. But, so there are some people who say that you can't fish if you're throwing it back. Yeah, that's a good question. There are some people who say that. But we don't hunt as a sport, and if somebody else does it, it's okay.
Is that the same concept as like having a Shabbat goy?
Yes. Moe is my Shabbat guy. My baby, who doesn't know the concept of Shabbos yet, can do things for the comfort of other people in the house. If the AC went off and it was like 110 degrees, I'm like, Moe, push the button right over there. And he's like, light. I'm like, it's okay. That's okay. He has no concept of Shabbos. But what we try to do is we try to hint it. I don't want to ask my babysitter straight out and be like, Sylvian, can you turn the air on? Like, I'll be like, oh, it is so hot in here. And she'll be like, oh, do you want me to turn the air on? I'm like, if it makes you feel better. Right, if you're hot.
Because she normally works for you and normally...
No, you can ask anybody. Yeah.
I thought you said you're not supposed to have like someone specific, like, oh, someone comes on Saturday for the purpose of doing things for me.
Right, but like,
But that's okay.
it's okay. Like, if she's working for me all week, I think it's okay. Like, and she understands. And, like, I always try to tell her the concept of, like, that we can't do things on Shabbos, so, like, so she should be a little more aware. Like, she should be out.
There's
Yeah.
people like at temples that work for the temple. who
Exactly.
aren't-
And they can, yes.
Lights or whatever they
Exactly.
do.
Right. And they shut the lights and they put things away. Yes, that's okay. That's okay. But it's not that we're using them as a slave. They don't have the mitzvah of Shabbos. So too with like the laws of kosher. Non-Jewish people don't have the laws of kosher. Like, it's okay. They're allowed to eat what they're allowed to eat. These laws were given to us. There are those certain laws that were given to the people, like during the time of Noah, which we'll talk about, that the Noahite laws, that does involve cruelty to animals. So we'll get to that 1 second. No, it's a good question. Okay, so no, really good question. Don't worry. Okay, so the Torah says, Okay, so now that we spoke about this concept of like animals and what we can eat and what we can't eat and how we're allowed to kill them and how we're allowed to slaughter them, the slaughtering goes to the same thing for animals like chickens and duck and all those birds. It goes for the same thing. So the Torah tells us, okay, so here we go, Jamie. The Torah tells us, this is what it says, you should be for me a holy nation, okay? Don't eat non-kosher, okay? Treif, right? You've heard that concept. It's treif, okay? Treif, by the way, means like if it wasn't slaughtered properly, not like non-kosher. Non-kosher is not, like people use that term treif, like, oh, it's treif. Treif means like it wasn't slaughtered properly, or if it was slaughtered properly, there was a blemish within the animal. So it says, you should be for me a holy nation. So the reason we don't eat, non-kosher animals is because we are a holy nation. So let's try to understand this. Okay, based upon all the Jewish sources, we know that we have a body and soul. Okay, we spoke about that in our first class with the life versus existence. We have a soul. We're not just existing. We're not just matter taking up space. We have another purpose here. We have a soul. Now, kosher has to do with taking care of your soul. Nothing to do with your physical body, right? Because I know plenty of people who eat lots and lots and lots of kosher food and are not healthy. It has to do with your soul. They may be unhealthy and might go into cardiac arrest, but they definitely have a healthy soul if they eat kosher. So it's very difficult for us to describe this if we don't understand what a soul is. But here's how it goes. These laws were given when? When was the Torah given? When did we receive the Torah? What? When we left Egypt, right? Okay, so when we left Egypt, so remember how last week I asked you that question where Abraham was serving matzah to the angels, and I'm like, it's Passover, it's Pesach. And you're like, wait a second, Faigy, it's not, Pesach didn't even happen. We didn't leave Egypt. So too, there's a great new movie coming out, Noah. Who's playing the character? I just saw it's coming out. Yeah. Who's the guy from A Beautiful Mind? Russell Crowe, right? Okay, he just got divorced, but don't worry, he's Noah. He's playing, there's a new, what?
He's a great Noah.
He's a great Noah, right? He has the whole beard and everything. Google it, you'll see him. He is a perfect Noah. So he is. I don't know if he's divorced, he's separated, whatever. It's okay. He's Noah. He'll be okay. Somebody else is in the movie. I forgot. Somebody else big is in the movie. Okay, so Noah. Let's go back to the story of Noah. That was last week's Torah portion. What did God tell Noah to bring onto the ark? Animals. Well, what kind of animals did he say? Pairs of what? Okay, good. Kosher animals. How many kosher animals? 7 of each kosher animal. And how many non-kosher animals? 2. 2, a pair of non-kosher animals, and 7 of the kosher animals. Wait a second. How do you know what's kosher and what's not? We didn't get the Torah till Mount Sinai, right? Till thousands of years later when we got out of Egypt. So what does it mean? How could Noah even know what kosher and not kosher is? So here we have another one of these questions where Torah, time is not like this. Time is not like this. It's like this, right? Because it has to be that during the time of Noah and way before that, there was a concept of what a kosher animal is and what a non-kosher animal is. And that means it has to do with when the animal was created. This is so cool. The essence of the animal determines what makes it kosher and what not. So let's talk about animals that we spoke about. Somebody mentioned predatory birds. We don't eat that, right? If you think about which animals did we mention are kosher? Let's talk about the meat animals that are kosher. Cow, sheep, lamb, goat, all animals you see at the petting zoo, right? If you go to the safari, I bet you none of those animals are kosher. What does that tell you about kosher animals? They're not, right? They're nice. They're not predators. They are the prey, but they are not predators. Let's talk fish. Which fish are kosher and which are not? A shark is not. An eel is not. Does the eel like the stingray? Am I mixing it up? Is that the same thing? Little Mermaid. Octopuses are not kosher. Electric eel. What's the one with like the big flaps? That's a stingray, right? An eel is like a long thing. Oh, oh, the ones that make the heart at the end? No? Oh, they're the bad ones? The evil ones. Okay, so Ursula is not kosher. Okay. She's that big, she is so scary. When she transformed to her big floppy thing. She is scary. Okay. Yeah, that is one, by the way, one princess who's not on Once Upon a Time yet. Whoever's following Once Upon a Time. Ariel is coming.
They cast her last season.
Yay. Ariel is coming to Once Upon a Time.
I think it's the, the redhead that's married to Nick Swisher?
There's a redhead in it? Which one?
She's in that animal show right now that got canceled.
Oh,
The guy
she's.
with weeds.
Oh, no, that I don't know. So that's her?
Yeah, it got canceled today.
Oh, okay. So the Little Mermaid. Okay. So the octopus is not kosher. So all these, what we're talking about is, and then we talk about the birds. Which birds are not kosher? All the birds of prey, the vultures, the hawk. I didn't know this, but I think an ostrich is a bird of prey. But when you go to safari, ostriches can eat whole apples, and then you watch them go down the neck. It's very cool. So that is when you do go. Okay, now the Kli Yakar, which is a very famous commentator on the Torah, he says that the reason for kosher is not health benefits. So if I'm going to reiterate it again. Kosher does not mean healthy. People say, oh, it's dietary laws. No, it's not. What it says about kosher is amazing. It says non-kosher foods remove a certain amount of spirituality from within you, and it causes a blockage. Now, if this is hard to understand because it's soul and it's spiritual, think about certain foods that can be kosher but could create a blockage. Hello, cholesterol, right? The yellow in eggs, just eat egg whites, right? Why do people eat that way? Because they want to take care of their physical being. So there are certain things that people eat. For example, when a woman is pregnant, she can't have wine. She can't do all these things. She can't eat. Whatever she eats will have an automatic effect. Crack babies, right? Like, why are they born? I mean, this is very unfortunate, but because if the mother is smoking or whatever she's inhaling during her pregnancy has a direct effect on her baby. How could that not have a spiritual effect on you? How could you not? How could you say that it could have a physical effect but not spiritual effect? We said this so many times. We know there's a body and soul in this world. You, at some point, will have to feed your soul. Torah, by the way, studying Torah, what we're doing now, is feeding our soul. Our soul, your soul's on a high. When it walks out of the JEC, it's like, ooh, I feel so good, and I don't know why. I don't even have to go to the gym. I just learn Torah all day. That's my excuse. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. I'm like, I'm not going to go to the gym in the morning. I'll listen to a class on my way to work, and that will feed my soul. I'll be so strong, right? It's a nice excuse. Okay, it's good. But the idea where you have to not only feed your body, but you also at some point have to feed your soul. And if you eat non-kosher food, the Torah tells us, you will block that spirituality from coming to you. Yes?
So what happens if you're breastfeeding and you're eating meat? So the meat's inside your body and then you're breastfeeding.
Good question. People say that breast milk is parve. Not that I ever had it. And I don't plan to. People say it's amazing, but it's parve. It's amazing that it is parve. No, it's not. It's amazing. It is amazing that it's parve. But that is such a good question. I don't think I've ever heard that one, but that is very good. Yes.
Why would that matter? Breast milk is for the baby. That's different than what you're eating.
Meat's still inside your body though, so it's still through you. If that was considered milk.
Right.
Then,
So I think that it's considered parve.
Not in your mouth.
It's like if you drink alcohol, that you go through breastfeed. Your milk.
Yeah, it will go to, yeah, you can. You have to eat healthy. For example, women who have trouble breastfeeding, the doctors will say, drink whole milk and have whole cottage, the 6% cottage cheese, whatever it is, don't drink fat-free milk. It has an effect on your milk that you will produce. Yeah. Yes?
Is there anything about fish and meat?
Fish and meat together? That's a good question. So some people say that, I think there is a tradition in the Torah that says it's not healthy, not from kosher, on a kosher side, people say it's not healthy to eat meat and fish together just for health reasons. I think you can choke on the bone or something. So, for example, at a Shabbat meal, people will usually have fish, right? We spoke about fish and meat, and remember we spoke about they all add up to 7 and everything. So people don't eat fish and meat together just for health purposes, not spiritually health purposes. So we like to wash it off. We don't eat it on the same plate. We don't eat it at the same time. But at any given point, you could be at a restaurant. Someone can order fish and someone can order meat. It's okay. Yeah.
There was something I heard that,
Yes, Worcester sauce has anchovies in it, and we don't like to use it with meat. That is very good. That is a question. That is a very good question. So anchovies are kosher, but putting the sauce on it people say not to eat fish and meat together for health purposes, not for spiritually kosher purposes. So there is Worcester sauce without anchovies. They sell it, but that is a good question. Like, I can't say it. There are a few of those words that I can't say. Like when I was a kid, I couldn't say spaghetti, but now it's like Worcester sauce. I know what you're talking about. I used to. What? Worcestershire? That's how you say it? Worcestershire? Okay, I have to practice it. I'm going to say it like 5 times, and I'm going to be like, I can't say this anymore. Okay, so the idea where animals that are kosher, well, these animals that we don't eat, these predator animals, because we believe that the soul, what we eat, you are what you eat, right? We've heard that, okay? And I'm going to say the best example is, for example, when a woman is pregnant, because it has a direct effect on her baby. You are what you eat. So too, if you eat these non-kosher animals, a part of their soul is in the blood. When you eat those animals, it says that, this is unbelievable, Nachmanides says, Ramban says that a part of that animal will become in you, and it will cause a blockage of spirituality. It won't allow you to learn certain things or believe certain things if you have that non-kosher animal in you. How scary. That is very scary. We go to such extremes to take care of our physical health. How can we not take care of our spiritual health? No? I mean, listen, I haven't been to the gym since May, and like now, I know we have to take care of our physical health. We do, and we all try to, but there is something to kosher that has an effect on your spiritual health. Now, here, it's so amazing because like I was saying that Moe will turn the light on for me on First Shabbos. Kosher is one thing that I start immediately when the child is born, and it's because it has immediate effects on your soul. So from when my child is born, I will make sure he has kosher formula, okay? Whatever he eats, all the food that he eats. My babysitter one time brought some stuff into the house, was clearly not kosher, and she saw my face when I was like, you cannot bring that into my house because my kids will get to it and they won't eat it. She was like terrified. She was like, oh my gosh, of course not. Kosher is something you start when they're so young. It's also, this is really bad that I do this, but an amazing excuse when I'm in Bed Bath & Beyond and they have all this candy in the front and they're like, I want this. I'm like, not kosher. I want this. I'm like, it's not kosher. But like Jolly Rancher just became kosher, and like all these things again, like Nabisco became kosher, and a lot of things that I used to say were not kosher. It was an amazing excuse because as much as they wanted and they were making me crazy, if they will put down that candy and they will put everything down so that, because they know it's not kosher. So this concept of kosher starts from the second they're born because it has immediate effects on their soul. Whereas Shabbos, it comes more with an understanding. So now, like they don't want, now, then they're careful with it. Okay, so like we said, the amount of sugar you intake, the amount of cholesterol you intake will have direct effects on you. This, too, will also have an effect. And not only will it affect you spiritually, but it says, this is really scary, it has effect on your character. It's really scary, right? Like, it has effect. Like, I never learned this when I was in school before. And I was like, oh, so this is what it's all about, right? It has direct effects. We don't eat predators. Certain sins will block, this food will block me off in a certain way spiritually. Yes? In the Torah. The Kliyakar. I mean, if you want the sources, I didn't print out the source sheets, but I will bring the source sheets for you next week. And this is all directly brought down from the Torah, how it explains it causes certain blockages to you. So here what I'm talking about. When we said Noah knew, okay, and you'll see when Russell Crowe is in that movie, when he brings those animals, he knows that certain animals are kosher and certain animals are not. And that's because it has to do with the essence of the animal. Even before they got the laws of the Torah from Mount Sinai and Moshe came down with the 10 Commandments, even before that, they knew there was a concept that there's a spiritual purpose to each animal. And by the way, when Adam named the animals in the first days of creation, he named them with their essence. Remember how we spoke about like every name has like your essence, right? Like my name is Sephora and I'm a bird. My Hebrew name is Sephora. I'm a bird. I talk a lot, whatever it is. That everyone like chirp a lot, right? Okay. So everybody's Hebrew name is their essence, who they are. And next week, if any of you have the name, their Hebrew name is the matriarchs. When we talk about the matriarchs, you do? Anybody name the matriarchs? Right. You guys, I know Sarah, Rachel. Okay, that's a good one. Anybody else Hebrew name the matriarchs? Chava, Sarah, Rachel, Leah. Leah is one of them. Rachel. Oh, okay, good. So you got it. So we'll talk about the matriarchs. We'll talk about their essence. Doesn't mean that like you're destined to be like them, but it does have to do with your essence. Now, this is so interesting. When Adam named the animals, here when we're talking about kosher and the animals, he named them by their essence. So, for example, a camel in Hebrew is a gamal. Okay, gamal comes from the Hebrew word of gemilut chasadim, to do kindness. Camels have 2 humps. They schlep people through the desert for hours at a time, but they don't have sands on their toes, don't worry. They're comfortable when they're doing it. And what they do, they're acts of kindness. They carry water, they feed water to, they're able to last for a very long time. They come from the root of gemilut chasadim, to do kindness. A donkey, which is not kosher. The Hebrew word is a chamor, which comes from the Hebrew word of cement, chemed, which means stubborn. Stubborn donkey. I'm not going to say the other word, but it is stubborn, okay, because I'm on tape. But an animal like that is stubborn. A kelev is a dog. Comes from the Hebrew word of kilev. Kilev, like your heart, the closest thing to your heart. The animal, I know some people like cats, but the closest animal that you can get to is a dog. It is the closest thing to your heart, besides a human being, is a dog, right? No other animal is a seeing eye dog. No, I mean, like, you don't see an eye cat. Like, there is no cat that is going to, like, that cat is not going to check if a car is coming down the street for you. He's just going to, like, walk right onto the cat, like, walk right in the street. And then maybe I'll, like, by mistake, run him over. But, like, no, I never done it to a cat. I did it to a squirrel and many, many pigeons. But the concept that these animals are their essence, Adam saw that when he named the animals, he knew exactly what was going on. That vulture will rip apart animals, whatever it'll do. That lions are not kosher. Lions are the king of all the other beasts. They will rip apart animals. Cows don't do that, right? Like, that's why we take kids to the petting zoo. Like, no one's going to get eaten. No one's going to get hurt. So this idea, what? Llamas, no, llamas are not kosher. But good question. I do love llamas. I have a photo with a llama at the petting zoo. I know, llamas are at the petting zoo. Good point, I know. I'll show you my picture of a llama. There was like, I don't want to keep you. Oh my gosh, it's so late. Whoa, I'm so sorry. I'll just tell you a funny story with the llama. On Pesach, there's it's spring break, right? So there's a whole week off. There's the days in between are called Chol HaMoed. So a lot of Jewish people, all the Jewish people are off, and you wonder why the Bronx Zoo is always so packed during that week of Passover. It's because all the kids have off. So we're at the Staten Island Zoo, and there's like the petting zoo area, which by the way, you have to like pay an extra $5 to come in like with the animals. And I go in there with my kids, and like, all the animals were like in one little corner. They were like petrified because all these like little Hasidic kids were like touching the animals, like stuffing them with like Fiber One, whatever that stuff is that they give. They were so scared of the animals. And there's like one llama just like walking around. Do you ever see The Emperor's New Groove? It's like my favorite Disney movie. It's like the one that llama was like, I forgot. It was like a while ago. But so there's this like one llama just standing in the middle for like photo shoots. I'm serious. So everybody went over to take pictures with this llama. But llamas are not kosher. Okay, so we'll just end off quickly like this. I'm sorry. Okay, so here's something. Okay, so the kosher thing, it's the idea where we want to make something kosher is if the taste goes into, it's because it's so strong, the spiritual effects of the animal has on you. It has an effect on, for example, your cutlery, all the knives that you use, all the dishes that you use, and all the glasses that you use, because the taste of the animal goes into it. So if you have a knife, for example, and you use it for a non-kosher animal, and you want to use it for a kosher animal, what do? You want to rid it of its taste, of its flavor of the non-kosher animal. You cook it in a pot of boiling water, right? So we do this, by the way, Passover time, like before Pesach, like for people who don't have set of dishes, which is really nice to have, but if you don't have, you can take all your dishes if they are porous, and if they are non-porous, or if they're porous. If let's say, for example, you have metal knives and metal, like all these things you want to make kosher, you can cook it in a pot of boiling water, and that removes the taste from it. So that's what makes it kosher. Of sticking it in the ground also, right? I don't know if any of you like been to your grandmother's house and there's like a bunch of knives like in the like the pots, right? In the flower pots, because the dirt also will absorb all the flavors from it. And then after you dip, what? Then you cook it. Then after it's sitting in there, you cook it in boiling water. Right, I know, dirt. By the way, when we're speaking about bugs, when we don't have a problem with eating bugs, we do have a problem with eating bugs, because bugs, there are certain vegetables and fruit that are infested with bugs. Take lettuce, spinach, cauliflower, broccoli. You don't want to know this, but when was this? Like a year ago, Starbucks came out with this thing that they used certain bugs to get a dye. Does anybody know what I'm talking about? I will look for the article and I'll find it. They used bugs to get a certain dye, to get a red dye to create a drink. Okay, so now bugs, you're like, ugh, I don't eat bugs. If you don't wash your lettuce off, you will be eating bugs. I know it's so scary. Strawberries, raspberries. You take a raspberry. I went to a class on how to check bugs from animals, and the rabbi, he had a light box. He took a blackberry. He dropped it on the light box so you can see it. Little bugs come crawling out of it. I know this is so gross, but lettuce is infested with little green bugs. You need to wash your lettuce. Ever wonder why salad at Circa is so expensive? Because you have to literally wash off your lettuce before you eat it. Strawberries. I soak my strawberries. I cut off the top. If anybody wants a lesson on how to check for bugs, fruits and vegetables, will gladly give it. You take strawberries, you cut off the top because that's where most of the bugs are around the top, okay? Cut it off, soak it in a little soapy water, don't drench it in soap. You take one little teeny drop of soap and then you soak it for about 3 minutes. You will see little black things. You're like, oh, that's seeds. No, it's bugs, okay? Strawberries, blackberries, blueberries are fine, apples are fine, oranges are fine. It's mostly the leafy, greeny things, okay? They sell already checked lettuce and cauliflower, and I can teach you most of the things you could check. Asparagus, underneath those little triangles under asparagus are mostly bugs, yes. And the reason, by the way, we don't have these bugs is we never really had this problem until they stopped spraying pesticide on the vegetables. And organic does not mean that it's bugless, by the way, yeah.
So we mentioned upstairs before that if something is what, like a 60th non.
Yes, that is a good question, yes.
So if you're eating a strawberry, you're eating a strawberry.
So bugs doesn't fall into that category. That is a good question. Bugs, that is a very good question. Bugs doesn't fall into that category because it says any amount of bug. So I think I did hear one time that a blended bug is better than a whole bug. I know that sounds gross. I'm grossing everyone out. But 1/60th tends to do with meat and milk. That, for example, if I have a big pot of like meat stew cooking and a 1/60th of milk falls into it, then it's still okay.
What if a fly falls into it?
So obviously, if it's by accident, then it's okay. Like if you don't mean to, like you.
Take it out and it's still kosher.
Yeah. But if you know that there are bugs, it's probably better to check first. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I'll just end off with this one idea, which I heard when I thought to be very interesting. So we spoke about Jews and we love to eat and food and we have to be careful about the spiritual effects that it has on us. But in the Garden of Eden, okay, in the story, this is where we're going to pick up next semester. We do Strong Jewish Women because we're going to talk about the story of Eve and the Garden of Eden and the whole idea of the apple. And really, it wasn't an apple, by the way. It was a pomegranate. Okay, so eating, what? Oh, people say either between fig, grape, or pomegranate. They're not sure. I'm like, how do you take a bite out of a pomegranate? That I don't know. Okay, so now eating, by the way, is a very unusual thing because there is something different about eating than any other physical intake that you do or physical desire that you do. Because if you're eating is the one thing that if you don't do it, your body and soul will separate. Because you can go your whole life without, let's say, for example, physical intimacy. You're not going to die from it. Maybe it's not an enjoyable life, but you're not going to die from it. Eating is the only physical desire that you have that if you don't do it, your body and soul will separate, which is very interesting. So if you go back to the Garden of Eden, what was the sin? What did the sin involve? Eating something forbidden that they couldn't eat. And there are those that say that the laws of kosher may very well be linked to this idea that when they ate from it, they corrupted the way that we see food in this world. So maybe this is your answer, Jamie. I'm sorry I keep calling you, but when you asked me, we do learn it from the Torah, but maybe this is where we learn it from, the idea that all the laws of kosher do stem from the misuse of eating during the Garden of Eden, okay, when they ate there, when they ate the wrong thing, a misuse of it, and now we need to correct that and have the proper use and only eat things that are good for our character. Okay? So with that, I will leave you for this semester.